Welcome back to episode number 11, I believe.
I can't count that.
I think it is. I think it's 11
sure.
for the Southern U podcast. Today is a pretty special day. We're here at NWTF convention in Nashville. As always, we have the man, the myth, the AL Deer legend, Matt Brock.
One day I'm going to do like Dana White and just get
walk
up.
off. Jeremy Ferguson of Wildlife Consulting Services. And then the guest of the hour, Mr. Ernie Power from Tethered. Ernie, thanks for hanging out with us, man. We really appreciate you coming in.
Oh, for sure.
Coming in, talking with a bunch of rednecks from Alabama. So we appreciate it. Today's show, we're actually going to be picking Ernie's brain a little bit and talking about saddle hunting. We've told you guys all along that this show is more than just hunting, even though we have talked about a lot of hunting content here lately. That was the season we were in. Deer season has just ended in Alabama. Finally.
Yeah, my goodness.
It has seemed like the longest season ever. It's finally over. And so here shortly, you're going to see us kind of switch gears a little bit and talk more habitat, more just kind of like land development, even real estate type stuff we'll be talking about a little bit while we're here. But before kind of hunting, leaves, it's still kind of fresh on our mind. Really excited to have Ernie on. We've been trying to get together and our schedules are just kind of crazy. So glad to have him on, and we're just going to talk a little about saddle hunting and kind of, I feel like there's a lot of probably misinformation about saddle hunting out there in hunting community. And I think if people were probably a little more educated on it, more people probably do it because it's kind of a very useful resource when it comes to.
I know that's the category I fall into.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you don't know what you don't know.
That's it.
That's my philosophy on a lot of things, actually. So, Ernie, if it's cool, man, I was going to let you just kind of lead off. Could you give us kind of an origin story type thing? How did Tethered come to be? I know that's probably a story that you have told a million times. You're probably sick to death of talking about it.
No, it's okay.
But, I mean, just for our listeners there, I mean, I know for me personally, did some apparel for you guys. I had a friend of mine reach out and go, hey, man, you need to reach out to this company. They just started. Like, I just started seeing their stuff, and they're called Tethered, and they make tree saddles. And I go, that's cool. What's a tree saddle? And so, really, from there, but you guys kind of, I mean, it was very quick, very rapid growth from day one. So if you could just maybe like, how'd you guys get here?
Yeah, so like Greg likes to put it, so we met online, but it wasn't weird. We were all part of a community. Saddle hunting's been around since the 70s. It's not a new idea. But what's new about it is the educational aspect and the ability to bring it to more people. And so when we started Tethered, even before that, we were all part of an online forum chat room of a bunch of idiots that like to hang from trees. And back then, there really wasn't a good commercial option. There was maybe 1-2 companies that were making a saddle product. But for the most part, you had to make your own. There wasn't a commercially available platform, and the saddle options that were out there were primarily manufactured by a company that would make arborist equipment. And so it wasn't very hunter friendly. It was overbuilt, heavy, loud. It didn't fit our mantra of, go in fast, light, whatever, efficient. And so there's a group of us we call them the Founding Fathers, and we all kind of got together and started coming up with ideas to make a platform. And then Greg reached out to me and he said, hey, I know you're working on this platform. We should team up. I'm working on a saddle. And we kind of decided at that point that we'd become the Amazon of saddle hunting.
Okay.
But the funny part is I told him no. I said, I'm kind of happy with my gig. I want to keep seeing what I can do with it and whatever. And my wife later informed me that I was an idiot if I didn't team up with Greg. And it ended up being perfect.
Thanks, Val.
Yeah. We come at the business from 2 different angles. I'm much more operations engineering, the nuts and bolts of getting things made and shipped. And Greg is awesome at creating a brand and creating excitement and all of the little nuts and bolts of getting things sold. And you really need both sides to be successful.
Absolutely.
And we just hit it at the right time. there were other companies who had tried to make a go at being, saddle hunting, if you will. Everybody's heard of Trophy Line. The Trophy Line today isn't Trophy Line of old. They've got new ownership and a bunch of things have changed. But when Trophy Line was owned and run by the Green family, I think the biggest problem they had was education, because anybody could walk up to a tree stand in the woods. A caveman, like to say, can walk up to a tree stand and look at it and be like, yeah, I climb up there and I sit down and I wait for the deer. It's easy. But if you throw a saddle on the ground, the guy looks at it, he's like, what? And it's, imagine this happening in a store. I'm looking at a saddle in a package and nobody's taught me how to use it or what it does or what the benefits are. But I got this tree stand right here that's super easy and intuitive. I'm going to buy the tree stand. And ultimately, that's what ended up happening to the industry. And, Trophy Line ended up having some other things happen along the way, but, ultimately failed as a saddle hunting company. Where I think Tethered was able to succeed is in the educational aspect. We employed every YouTuber that we could talk to, and we made all kinds of content and just really tried to flood the market with, this is what a saddle does and why, and this is why it will make you a better hunter. And people could digest that content at their own pace. They could learn, they could ask questions. We did a whole bunch of meet and greet style events. We called them teach and trains, where we would go to a random city in a city park and set up, and whoever wanted to come could try and set up and try and use all of this equipment and go. And I think that educational aspect of getting the fire started is really what did it, because then they went home and told their friends and they told their friends, and, exponentially through word of mouth, all of a sudden saddle hunting as a whole in the industry is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, we're hearing it from retail stores and from even tree stand manufacturers that they're feeling the pain of tree stand sales being affected by the saddle hunting market. And it's no longer, it's not on the fringes anymore.
Yeah.
Like most people by now have heard of saddle hunting, whereas if you would have tried to have this discussion 5 years ago, most people would look at you like, what are you talking about? Are you hunting on a horse?
Yeah, exactly.
It was a different deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, we came together. We started up this business. Like I said, there's 9 of us that were involved fundamentally, but Greg and I are the 2 primary owners. And as the founding fathers, that's where a lot of our brainstorming and a lot of our ideas get fleshed out through that group. And we've had everybody involved from the beginning to the point now where, Tethered is here, and I don't see it going anywhere.
No, I don't think so. And I don't want to add to the story, but I just heard you say this before. Like, we weren't even really trying to, make this to sell. We were just hoping we could pay for our gear. We were hoping that if we sold enough, it would pay for our gear. We wouldn't be out any money.
Well, that's, like I said, when this all started, you had to make your own equipment.
Yeah.
And the main thing that started was nobody was making a platform that you could use. You were cutting up Lone Wolf tree stands, or you were buying pieces from XOP and bolting them together. I mean, you really had to fabricate your own stuff. And I actually, for a while, was selling a kit of parts that I would fabricate that you could go buy pieces from these tree stand manufacturers, bolt it together, and make a platform. And so we got together and we're like, if we sandcast a platform, and we all chip in, we can kind of cover the costs. It'll be expensive, but we can do it. And then we'll have unlimited platforms at a price we can afford, right? Well, this would be great. We can hang them everywhere.
Yeah.
And, as it turns out, more people wanted them than just us. And we went from trying to figure out how to break even to our high-end goal was, if we sell, I don't remember what it was, 200 pieces or 300 pieces, we'll have enough money that we can go on a guided elk hunt. That was Greg and I's goal. We wanted to go on a guided elk hunt, and we ended up being able to book and go on that hunt that year. And
that's awesome.
December of our first year, I quit a 15-year engineering career to go full-time at Tethered. Greg took a little bit longer because getting out of the military isn't as easy as quitting your job.
Right.
So it took another year for him to get out. He was an officer, and they just weren't going to let him go easy. But, yeah, it just exploded quickly, and I think we had the right product with the right strategy of education and sales, and at the right time, because we started all this and then all of a sudden COVID hit and everybody was trying to get in the woods. Everybody had extra money. There was, bonus money being thrown around by the government, and there was all kinds of things going on. It just ended up being the right product, right time, right people, right education. It was just kind of this golden situation where it all happened at once.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, it is wild to think, how people used to have to kind of just Frankenstein their stuff together and make it work. And in my opinion, that's one of the coolest things about saddle hunting in general is that it's almost like building an AR. Like everybody can customize their stuff and make it however they want it to be, and nobody's is really the same.
Right.
Everybody's climbing system, or everybody's pockets, whatever you're using is no two people really have the same setup, and it's just kind of cool that you can customize it that much. Sorry.
I know my introduction to saddles it was in the late 90s. Dr. Bob Shepard in Pickens County had been hunting out of a saddle for a long time. And I don't know if he manufactured his own at the time, but it was pretty neat because he showed me how it all worked in the yard one day. And I don't know if you know who Dr. Shepard is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, he'd been hunting out of them for quite some time. But that was my introduction to saddle hunting.
Well, and people have been doing it forever. I mean, the Anderson's tree sling, I believe, started in the 70s. So, I mean, there's been a version of a tree saddle around for a long time. And, there's a lot of old-timers. John Eberhardt's a prime example who've been doing it forever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but my stepdad knew of a guy, like you said, back in the 90s, that he worked for a power company, so he was used to going up power poles and stuff like that with a lineman's belt a lot, and just was like, I'm comfortable with this. I'll throw on a set of spurs and just climb a tree and hunt that way. And everybody thought he was insane, but it worked, and he killed deer out of it too.
Yeah,
so.
that was, I don't guess it was the same guy, but that was how I came across it, first. And the guys I knew, had a lineman belt and spurs, but they had a rock climbing harness. But you were talking about heavy and clunky and loud. I mean, it was heavy and loud, but they made it work. But now it has evolved to something that's a really, really useful and versatile tool. That's what I like about them, even though I've not hunted out of them. I didn't get to hunt much this year at all. But the versatility of them that I can
I said, I did.
Yeah, we know.
The versatility that I can see with those, instead of, having to find, a tree that you can get in, it's find the right tree and get in it.
Yep.
For sure. And that kind of leads into this second question here is, in your opinion, what do you feel like the biggest advantage of hunting out of a saddle versus some other method? What do you feel like the biggest is? Now, obviously, it's lighter. But is there more to it than that?
I think there is. I think mobility is a big one. If you think about it this way, if you're a guy who has a tree stand hung up in the woods, right, that takes effort. A ladder stand, even lock-ons to the certain point. If you're not trying to set that lock-on up every hunt, there's guys that do, but you crawl up there, you're sitting in that tree, and you see deer, and they're just outside of range, and you see them there all day. Well, the guy who is pot committed to that tree stand, the next day he gets in the same tree stand and hopes they come closer. The guy with the saddle goes over to where he saw the deer yesterday and sets up over there instead. And the ability to have that mobility is a giant advantage.
Yeah, I think so too. We've talked about it on this podcast before, but rarely in the South do you have a very consistent wind. And like even on the drive up here, we were just talking about how, like in Tennessee, for example, there's a lot of just rolling hills, and as you get farther east, you get to some sure enough, mountainous, Appalachian Trail, the tail end of the mountain range there. Like wind doesn't behave the way that you think wind would, so it swirls a lot, and you get some inconsistencies. So it's nice to be able to just like, hey, you know what? I was going to hunt here, but the wind's not blowing the way I thought it was going to blow, and I'm just going to move. I'm just going to make a move, and it's not like I'm
and
not.
it might be a 20-yard move. That's all it takes.
Yeah, like it doesn't really, and it's not like, oh man, now let's take these sticks down. Let's take this stand down. Let's try to be, you know what I mean? It's just like, just move. No big deal. So I think that's a huge
And once you get your
advantage.
system down, I mean, it's a quiet, efficient way to go. I'm really clumsy in the woods, and I've tried to do the lock-ons. I've tried to do, and I can't do it quietly. It's a nightmare. I'm sweating to death. This for me checks all the boxes because it's easy for me to do. It's easy to set up. I was a tree trimmer for a long time, so I'm real familiar with the feeling and the gear and all of that stuff. And I really love to just scout and hunt. I love walking into a place that I don't really know and walk around for a little bit and be like, all right, I'm going to hunt right there. And having that ability to not have to carry a ton of weight and a ton of bulk as I'm looking around for what I want to find for sign or location or etc. has just been a real nice deal for me. And my ADD kicks in big time too. So it works for me.
Yeah, for sure. I have a friend of mine that has some family property that he got to hunt, and then there was a little stretch for a couple of years where he didn't get to hunt it anymore, and it was an ag field. It grew up and just kind of it's just a jungle now. Privet, briars, honeysuckle, everything that you kind of makes things miserable to try to walk through. And he got a chance to hunt it again, and so he and I went out there. I was going to run a camera for him, and it took us forever to get out there. We were both just like, briars had shredded our legs and arms and stuff. We finally get out there and get in a tree, and I was just like, man, that's terrible. Like, I don't ever want to do that. And he goes, yeah, imagine doing what we just did with a stand on our back. And I went, yeah, I didn't even think about it like that.
Yeah,
because
it's a big deal.
It would have been exponentially worse trying to get a lock on or something like that through there. So,
well, and I'm back from the day I used to climb with a tree lounge.
Yeah,
if you've ever seen how big one of those
absolutely,
things are.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
like a diving board.
Yeah, it's like having a sheet of plywood on your back trying to get through the woods, right? So compared to that, anything's easy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That brings back memories.
Tree lounge. We had to.
I had one.
Oh yeah, I didn't ever have one, but I thought it was funny in our ag classes in high school. If we ever had like downtime, or if we ever had a substitute, it was like, watch the tree lounge intro video. Just like, it's crazy what we did when we were back in the day.
Well, and I think they're trying to make a push back into the market again.
Really?
I see advertisements every now and then. I think they call it tree lounger now instead of tree lounge, but it's the same thing.
Gotcha.
It was like you say, it was huge. I mean, we had one, and it got put on one tree in the club I was in down around Auburn, Alabama, and that's where it got left.
Yeah.
It stayed there, and as a matter of fact, when we got out of the club, it stayed there then too.
Well, because if you remember right, it was all hollow tube aluminum,
yes.
right? And just trying to get the back bar on there so you could get it set and to climb up, it's ringing like a bell everywhere. But boy, once you got up there, now we're talking, right? I slept lots of times up in the top of a tree. In fact, I remember I was up there sleeping one time and just happened to wake up as a deer was coming by. I was like, all right, and I shot the deer and it fell over. I'm like, well, that's good. And I just went back to sleep. I'll deal with it later.
That's funny.
It was comfy up there.
Yeah, my dad has talked about sleeping in them before and waking up to deer blowing at him from him snoring, like waking up to deer just because he was sleeping in the stand. That's funny. I guess next question, which, by the way, I probably should have said this earlier. If you hear lots of background noise and lots of stuff, this is a convention. There's all kinds of stuff going on around us, and we promise you that where we are recording this right now is much better than the alternative, which is on the main floor with all the other vendors. It was so loud.
It's the quietest place we could find.
Yeah, it's the quietest place we could find.
Box calls and goose calls.
Yeah, so it's a podcast, so you're going to hear some stuff that can't help it. This next question here, this is the one I'm probably most excited to ask because I'd love to kind of get Ernie's take on this. But what do you feel like is the most misunderstood, what's the most misunderstood aspect of saddle hunting? Do you feel like there's anything that the general public kind of has backwards about saddles or doesn't really understand about saddles that maybe they should or you'd like for them to?
Well, it's kind of a loaded question. So why don't we start with this? To somebody who's never been around saddles and sees it for the first time, the first thing they say is that can't be comfortable.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one.
Yeah.
That cannot be comfortable.
That's what I said first. I was wrong.
Yeah, that can't be comfortable. That's the first thing that they always say. So there's a progression when I've worked these trade shows enough times where, you get the guy that comes up and he's watching, and you might be doing a demo with somebody else, and he's sitting there and he's got his arms crossed and he's on the other side of the aisle kind of looking, and 10 minutes comes by and now he's a little closer and he's looking and he's just nah, and eventually he gets close enough that you're like, hey, do you want to try something on? Oh, no, I don't. No, I'm not gonna. Come on, just put one on.
Yeah.
Right. Within minutes of putting it on, it happens all the time. You see the little spark in their eye, and he'll turn to you and he goes, "This is way more comfortable than I thought it would be," and it's happened 1,000 times. And then you go from there. Then it's like, all right, cool. Well, check this out. What if we adjust this? What if we adjust this? And then we start fine-tuning the comfort for them, and then their eyes get even bigger. And then we start showing them how they can walk around the tree and take a shot from any angle. And, next thing you know, they're like tapping their wife, hey, where's that credit card? So it's fun to watch because the biggest thing is getting a guy in it to try it. But there's such a hesitation to somebody who's new. And it's easy to – anytime anybody comes across something new, the first thing their head goes is to the negatives. That can't be comfortable. You're moving around too much. How do I get a shot? I'm going to be all tied up in the ropes. Like, how do I – all these different things that are – they're just natural distractions your brain comes up with to tell you why that isn't a good idea. But as soon as you get in it and start experiencing it, then it goes from there. And I think that's where that word of mouth has been a big deal because, one guy in a hunting camp shows up with a saddle that year and shows all his buddies, and they think he's an idiot till he shoots something, and then he's showing them how to put it on in camp, and then the next year there's 3 of them. And it just has been growing that way.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. The only thing I guess I would add is everybody knows, like, archery is my thing. I love bow hunting. And so my only concern initially was with a bow in your hand, I feel like it would make my form out of whack because, depending on the angle that you're trying to shoot, that you're not going to maintain good form. That myth was kind of put to bed whenever we went down for a hog hunt a few years back. That was the first animal that I had ever harvested out of a saddle. And I didn't really mean to. I didn't think about it when I did it. But I kept my knees in the tree when I shot and had a good sized boar come out, and I shot it at like 26 yards. And I left my knees buried into the tree and just came and just leaned around the outside of the tree and shot. And the first thing I told him was like, I was not expecting to be that steady, I guess. I kind of thought I would be, kind of dangling from the tree, as everybody likes to say. And then Ernie brought it up. He's like, well, if you think about it, if you're standing on flat ground, forget a tree stand or a ground blind. If you're just standing on flat ground, where are your hinge, your pivot point? It's really your ankles, and so you've got a lot of weight from your ankles up that you're having to kind of control. If you leave your knees in the tree, you really cut that in half. You've got everything from your waist up is stable at that point. And so
you lean into your bridge, so that locks your hips into place. Your knees are in the tree, your feet are on the ground. You got 3 anchor points for your body from the waist down. So really all you have to control is from the waist up.
Yeah.
So it's way easier to control all of that if everything else is locked because it's under pressure of the rope or the tree or your platform. And that's exactly right. You're going to be more stable. Now, the big thing you have to get your head wrapped around is you have to pivot around the tree so that your shooting arm is still at 90 degrees to your body.
Yes.
When people get all in trouble is when they try and move their shooting arm in front of them. Well, that's bad form anyways.
Yep.
So instead of moving your arm in front of you, kind of rotate a little bit so your arm stays straight, but your body rotates, and then you're going to be able to keep that form. And you'll be just fine.
I mean, it's really, I equate that to shooting a gun free-handed or shooting a gun off a rest. It's the same deal. Like you're able to rest it and kind of get it stable. So I was shocked though, because I let that arrow go and I saw it disappear through that pig's heart, and I was like, wow, like this is gonna be I hate the word game changer because I feel like it gets overused, but it really is it's gonna help a lot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And from there I've been able to harvest several animals out of it, and more pigs and more deer and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I do think that even in the comfort factor like you were talking about, I think even let's just say that a saddle was not as comfortable as a tree stand. That's like up for debate. People can argue that all day, and it's kind of a matter of opinion. But like with a lot of things, it's a trade-off on some stuff. Like, would I give up a little bit of comfort to be able to go a whole lot farther? Especially if you're hunting somewhere where you've got to walk a long way, public land, whatever. Maybe I sacrifice a little bit of to get rid of the weight and get rid of the, something like that to be able to go farther and not sweat as much, getting in there, something like that. It's all a trade-off. So,
Oh, there's no doubt. I will be taking a tethered setup next time I'm hunting public land in the Midwest.
Oh my gosh, I took 4.
I will never carry a stand again.
I took 4 lock-ons and 4 sets of sticks to Kansas with me this year, and I spent the first 2 days just hanging stands.
Yeah.
And I'd hunt once or twice and wouldn't like my setup, and I'd have to do what y'all were talking about a minute ago. I'd have to take everything down, move it over 40 yards or 60 yards, or just move it all together, after walking in for 3/4 of a mile. And I'm like, now I got to take it all the way back to the truck. And if I had, a saddle set up, it'd be so much easier. And the thing about it is, I have one. I just don't know how to use it. I haven't taken the time to look through a tutorial or have somebody show me. And one of my biggest setbacks has been all my lower back pain and the problems I have there. But it seems like it may actually be better on my back than a climber.
That's the story I hear from a lot of people. Now, the best place to learn about how to use a saddle is only about 40 miles down the road.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
We're close.
We're not that far away.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, and think about it this way, right? So in order to take 4 lock-ons and all the sticks and everything else, you're filling up a truck bed.
Absolutely.
I can pack for an out-of-state hunt in a suitcase.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something we haven't talked about at all yet, but Tethered does a great job of it's not just saddles, but climbing methods. The one stick.
The one stick is unbelievable.
Look, of course, they've got Skeletors too, but the one stick is, I've said it to everybody that will listen to me. There may be some kind of improvement you guys will make in the future, but I can't see it right now. Like, it's just, that is the perfect stick.
The one stick has been through a few iterations, right?
Yes.
But they're little minor tweaks here and there. Where I've got the one stick right now from an engineering perspective is the best it's ever been.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I need to change it. It's one of those things where, look, the one stick's been out 3 years now, and nobody's been able to top it. And they've tried, right?
No.
But nobody's been able to beat it as far as for a weight deal. Our rope attachment method that we came up with, again, nobody's been able to beat that. It's not to toot our own horn, but that's a really nice climbing stick.
It is, and I mean, I've said, like, I wouldn't care. It wouldn't bother me if it were heavier. Like, I wouldn't, not use it if it were a little bit heavier. It's the fact that, there are no buckles. There's nothing to clang and make noise. When you attach it to the tree, you go through that Dynalock and lock it down, and it's there. And then when you get ready to leave, there's no bungee cords. There's no, you know what I mean? You just stack those pins together and go. It's over. If they weighed 3 pounds apiece, I wouldn't care. I'd still use them. But the fact that it's they'll stack, there's no buckles. Oh, and by the way, they're sub 1 pound, ready to hunt. Okay. It's just icing on the cake. So.
Yep. And like I said, there's a lot of people out there chasing the lightest stick game, but I don't feel like anybody's got there yet.
No.
Or if they have, they've put out a stick that isn't as tall, right? So you're losing some distance, or it's only got one step on each it's
Yep.
a single step on the single and the top. So they got rid of half of the steps in order to cut weight or whatever else. It's just a cool stick. It really is.
It is, and little things too, like something that I would have never thought about is the glow tabs. Like when you're getting down at, and it's dark 30 and you're getting out of there, you can look down and see every one of those glow tabs. Like, you know where to put your foot. Like that's just,
And they light up too.
Yeah, I would have never thought of it, but it's like that's another really, really nice feature that just to help be efficient and get out of there when you want to get out. So, not just saddles, guys. There's a lot of stuff to like that Tethered's doing here. What have I got here? Oh yeah, question number 4. What would you say to someone that's on the fence? Maybe they've watched some videos or they've gone to maybe a teach and train or something like that, and they're just kind of on the fence about, should I pull the trigger on this? Should I purchase one? I don't know. I can't make my mind up. What would you say to that person who's kind of just contemplating?
The first thing I'd be is get in one, right? That's the biggest thing. Get in one. Make sure that you don't hate it, right? Because that's the first thing. Is like as soon as you get in it, most of the people fall in love right away, right?
Yeah.
But then saddle hunting is it's a personal deal as far as like the different ways of doing it, and we've always said from the beginning, you don't necessarily have to buy our products.
Mm-hmm.
Just get in a saddle, get in the woods, and get to where you're enjoying the sport. And feel free to kind of try a bunch of different people in a bunch of different ways. One of the things that we're doing to kind of help overcome that initial step into saddle hunting is we launched a whole grit line this spring. It's a retail brick and mortar based product offering, but we didn't really we made it so it's really nice stuff at the retail level and at a price point that the guy just wanting to dip his toes in there can get in without having to mortgage his house.
Right.
We have some really good manufacturing partners. We've got some really nice designs in there. Things that we've done, even for example, like our Predator platform got moved down to the grit line, but we made improvements on it before we moved it down. So it's actually a nicer platform now in the grit line than it was in the tethered line before.
Right.
So, but you're going to be able to get it at a better price point because we worked with some of our other manufacturers to get it to where we needed to.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's one thing that I've respected about you guys from the beginning is you've always said, even at teaching trains, like, hey, bring whatever saddle you have. You don't have to be a tethered saddle. Just bring what you got. Like, we don't care. And all of your, I feel like we live in a world that's so proprietary. Everything is like, this charger won't work with this phone or this, you know what I mean? Everything is just so like brand centric. But you guys have said from the beginning, like, hey, we make even like the cis haulers and, his straps, stuff like that like it'll fit anything. It's modular. You can take our pouches or pockets and you can put them on whatever saddle you want. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be us. And
all of our suspender kits, all of the different accessories that we have, they are tailor-made to go on tethered products. That's where they're going to work the best. But they generally include adapters so that if you've got a different style saddle, you can still use it with these adapters. And so we try and accommodate, lots of different styles. And, like I said, it's a real personal thing. Everybody has their own way of doing it.
Sure. And there's just a lot of people that are a lot of brands that wouldn't do that. I don't feel like, you know what I mean? It's like you can buy our stuff or you can get out.
And, I mean, my introduction to Tethered was the knee pads.
Yeah.
I saw the knee pads online. I was like, man, those look perfect for what I'm about to go do, spot and stalk pronghorn.
Oh, sure.
I'm like, they're small, they're outside the pant, and the attachment says, I don't know what you call the little clip, but they were much better than anything else that I could find. And I was like, I'm buying knee pads from a saddle company to go spot and stalk pronghorn.
Sure.
Of course, I've bought other stuff since, but that was my introduction.
It's funny.
It had nothing to do with
saddle hunting.
It was saddle hunting, getting in a tree.
Right.
Probably one of the crazier crossovers that I've seen is a bunch of duck hunters who were buying his straps.
Oh yeah.
And it took me, we had to ask and find out what we're doing, and it's awesome. But if you take a hitch strap and put it around a tree when you're hunting flooded timber, you can take your mallards beak down and tuck them into the loops, and you can make a whole ring of ducks around the tree, and it works awesome.
That's awesome.
And then your, flooded timber, you've got your, like your fold and go goes on the hitch strap. You can hang your shotgun right there. Everything's out of the water. Take a platform, put it on the tree just below waist level. Now you got a chair, so you're not sitting on the ground in the flooded water. So you can set this whole setup for duck hunting using saddle gear. You're just not using the saddle, but you can use the platform and the hitch strap and the fold and goes and all the little odds and ends and pieces. And it works awesome in flooded timber.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, and don't get it twisted, guys. They're Tethered bunch. They're turkey killers, too. They got a turkey vest out, too, right? I mean, it's
that
not
turkey
just,
vest is nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just hanging from a tree either. They do it all. Of course, Ernie, I want to say that one of the very first conversations that you and I had is when you were heading to Idaho for an elk hunt. So I mean, it's not just that you're doing all kind of stuff. Let's see. I've got one more question here. Actually, I probably got two more because I just thought of one. What kind of cost? Because you talked about the grit line and kind of making it more affordable. What kind of cost is a hunter looking at for a complete setup? If they said, "Hey, look, I have no gear, I have nothing, and I want to get into this," what's kind of a ballpark figure for someone that realistically they could spend to make it?
So that's another loaded question, right? Because
how deep you want to go,
and how some people like to go straight to the top, right? So if you go right to the top and you were to buy the top of the line products from everything that Tethered has, you could be in the $1,500 range really fast.
Yeah.
But if you back up and you go to like our grit line, you're getting your saddle, your ropes, and your back band for $300. You're getting your platform for another $150, and then a set of sticks for $200. You're at $650, and you've got sticks, saddle, platform, ropes, and ready to hunt.
That's not bad.
So, I mean, like I said, you could start in the $600 range, or you can go to the $1,500 range.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of pick your poison.
That's true. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the very first experience I had hunting out of a saddle, I bought the Phantom and was going to use some existing sticks that I had, and that was a nightmare using those sticks. They were loud, and there was no good way to strap them together. They came with a tree stand, and so they were made to attach to a tree stand, and now I'm not using the stand. I'm trying to use it with a saddle, and it was just like it just made the whole experience. Once you're in the tree, it's fine, but just getting to and from was kind of cumbersome. And got the one sticks, and anybody that will listen to me when they go, "Gosh, man, those sticks are kind of pricey," and I'm like, "Listen to me. I don't care what you can hunt out of a tree stand if you want to. You can hunt out of whatever. Spend your money on those sticks." Like it's I can't express to you how much I think of those, and everyone that's ever listened to me that bought them has said, like, "Yeah, man, I'm glad you convinced me to do that," because it's and I'm like, no, you can't appreciate those because you didn't use the other ones before.
Right.
You don't get it. You don't understand how But yeah, I've got a friend of mine that's kind of getting into it, and he was just like, "Man, are you sure? God, it's expensive." And I said, "Just do it." And he was like, "Yeah, man, this is awesome." I'm like, "No, you don't get it. You should have used my other sticks before you use those, and you get it." But anyways, I guess kind of last thing here, Ernie, before we let you go. Obviously, you said earlier, like, saddle hunting's been around for a long time, but it seems like in recent, probably the last 5 years, things have really ramped up and grown in popularity. And it's kind of crazy to see how far things have come just in those 5 years. What do you think for Tethered, man? What do you think the future holds for Tethered, or what's on the horizon for you guys?
Man, I mean, without getting too specific, we've got a lot of cool ideas. We're making some real moves around internally at the company, doing some cool things there. This grit line, has been a big project to come to fruition. Mm-hmm. This summer, we'll be releasing our smaller version of our carbon fiber platform. We're expecting that guy
That's-
to come in just at around 2 pounds, maybe a touch over.
Wow.
We just launched 3 new saddles in the last 6 months. So between our Ultralock, the Ultralock slim, strip down, and then this grit lineup, so that's been really cool. There's just there's so many things that we've done now that it's like we're trying to take a breath and catch up. Really.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I'm sure that everybody sort of has the same philosophy, I guess, or the same thought process. But I mean, in my eyes, and I'm not, a part of what necessarily that team, what you guys are doing. But it's kind of like, where can they go from here? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, everything it's been such a positive reaction, and everything's been so well received across the industry. It's kind of like,
How does it get better?
yeah, I mean, what are they going to do to make it better? And that's, I don't know. I was kind of,
Well, it's crazy, right? But if you do think about it, over the last 5 years, 5 years ago, we were sitting in sick drags that we bought, and made our own saddle. And now you're looking at, like, the Ultralock has comfort channels and expandable seats, and it's got so many innovations. I mean, Tethered's patent profile is 15, 16 patents deep now of all the things that we've kind of brought to the market and done so far. And there's 3 or 4 more that are, they're just waiting to be hatched now. But I think that the big thing is we use this stuff, right? So that's where most of this comes from, is we're in the woods and we're like, man, I really wish I had something that did this, or man, I wish this was tweaked just a little bit. And next year, that's a product. And that's where the beauty of it is because we use this stuff every day. I mean, this is what we live, eat, and breathe. So that's been kind of where a lot of this inspiration comes from of how to do it. And, there's things that have come along the way that maybe somebody has done before, right? So if you look at our Skeletor stick, they are really, really similar to an old company that went out of business, Leverage, that had a similar type of an angled step stick. And, through some things that happened with Leverage, they're not around anymore. But it was a good design. Just needed to be tweaked and brought to the future a little bit. So that's where we came in and did that. And so there's some of that stuff that we do too, where it's like, man, this product was around and it just didn't catch on. Why? What can we do to kind of make it better?
yeah, slightly improve. Yeah, I think it's just been cool to have kind of a view from a distance to see what you guys have done and kind of how far things have come for you. And I mean, whenever I met you guys, everything was happening in Minnesota. You've moved across the country. Now you're in Tennessee. And so, I mean, it's just like, it's wild to think how crazy things have progressed for you and what the future holds. The thing I hear a lot is, especially a lot of old timers are like, it's a fad. This is something it'll be here for a while
It's
and it's
not
gone.
going anywhere.
Dude, it's not.
I think we've
don't
passed
think it
that.
is.
Yeah.
I think we've passed that. I think you're seeing it even in surveys from like the Tree Stand Manufacturers Association when they do just bulk hunter surveys of if you're an elevated hunter, how are you doing it? And it's not an anomaly anymore. It's a real percentage that comes back and says they're saddle hunters.
Yeah.
To the point that there actually is a committee of saddle hunting manufacturers they meet several times a year, and we're writing a safety standard, an ASTM engineering safety standard for saddles.
That's cool, man.
That needs to happen because it's not going anywhere.
Right.
No. Oh, that's cool. And you guys don't know, I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast or not, but we actually had an opportunity, Jeremy and I went up to Ernie's property here in Tennessee, and I got to see I guess where the big deer roam in Tennessee.
Oh, not on my place, man.
But as far as just kind of the land side of things, I pretty much just ran the camera the whole time. But Jeremy was able to kind of identify a few things that might be able to improve there, and some things to take advantage of.
Absolutely.
And
it sounds like he's done a lot.
Yeah.
Of work
I can't wait
this
till you
week.
guys come and see what I've done.
Yeah.
If nothing else, just I put boots on every inch of that ground now.
That's what it takes.
And I've walked it right, left, up, down, diagonal. it's funny. I found a deadhead in there with my little boy this year, and started looking around, and I could tell why it was there. It was, a perfect buck bed on the edge of a ridge. Had a steep uphill on one side, a place he could see on the other, and I'm sure it was something that was gut shot, and he went and laid down there and died.
Right.
But it was cool because I could look at it and understand why that deer was there.
Mm-hmm.
But the cooler part was telling my 10-year-old boy why it was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I get it. He's like this. And so he's starting to
Figure
kind
it
of
out.
catch on to some of these things. And so he gets a big kick out of why we're putting cameras in certain places and why we're looking at certain things and, certain mass trees and things along the way. And I have just had so much fun kind of passing that on. That's my favorite part about this little piece of property is taking the kids up there and we found a whole bunch of holes in the ground and we're like, what do you think made that? So we put a trail camera on it and caught a whole bunch of armadillos running around.
Yeah.
So it's like a fun game for him. And, anytime we get a good deer on camera, I make sure and have him come over and check it out and whatever else. And he can't wait to get up there and do some shed hunting. But just as even last week, I had bucks with both sides on my camera. So it's not quite time to get up there, but
Yeah. That's cool, though. And I mean, it's going to be neat for us. As long as Ernie will have us, we'll go back up in late spring and after turkey season and kind of see what's going on there and what all kind of intel we can
He's had time to do a lot of evaluating.
Yeah, because, Jeremy has said on here before and even said it to Ernie, like, if someone steps foot on your property for the very first time and starts making all kinds of recommendations, that may not necessarily be something you want to listen to because it's hard to do. Like, you just need to gather some intel, and that's kind of, hey, we identified some chinkapin oaks and some.
We identified some points to keep track of, but really spending a year doing what he did, walking at different times a year and learning, why these animals are using, where they're using at specific times a year, and then we can fine tune some things.
Yeah.
what was awesome was that week of snow we had.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I spent a lot of time up there in the snow because I let it snow and then, it didn't melt right away. So it was there for a week. Well, you go up there after a week and you can really find where they're traveling and whatever else.
Yeah.
Lots of bedding and other things that I probably wouldn't have found otherwise.
Right.
That snow was really helpful.
That's cool. So, we'll try to put together that video when we go up again and see what recommendations we can make, and I guess how to improve that. I'm excited just to kind of get to
do some real work up there this time.
Yeah, there you go.
Like I said, I can't wait for you guys to see even just what I've done since you were there. I've had a really good time, and there's so much I could do. It's just trying to find an extra minute here or there to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, that's really about all the tethered related, I guess, questions we had. Unless you guys got another one you want to add to, can't really take anything away.
I'm looking forward to getting in one. My first deer being killed in 2024 will be from a saddle.
Good deal.
I spent a lot of time in them, just not hunting.
Yeah.
They are a game changer. When you
He said it. I didn't
did.
say it, guys. He said
Hey,
it.
when you hang 60 lock-ons in a matter of 3 or 4 days,
Oh, it's exhausting.
it's terrible.
Yeah.
But when you can sit in one of those doing it, nice.
Well, even to the point of on my property, this spring they had a clearance on 20-foot ladder sticks.
Mm-hmm.
The one-piece ladder sticks, and I put them all over my property and cut shooting lanes and whatever else, and they're all set, so I can just crawl up there, put a platform on, and hunt.
And go.
And they're all set, and I've got them set for multiple winds and different locations and different stuff. I never got a chance to hunt any of it, but I put them all up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we set up a bunch of stands in different states and over a very short amount of time. And, lineman's belt's great, but, your feet are hurting, your legs are hurting. It's got you by the waist. There's no support, but having a saddle and being able to sit back, put your knees against the tree with the pads, by the way, and just kind of lean back and take a breath and be like, and then go back
Yeah.
and finish the job. You know, it used to be rough.
Yeah.
You know, even as a young man, and I'm getting a little older, and anything I can find to make those type projects easier, I'm all in.
Well, you know, I said we were done, and you said something that made me think. I'm glad you said it. The I guess argument or the thought process behind purchasing a saddle for a lot of people is if they primarily hunt public land, where you're having to pack in and pack out every time you go in the woods. But I'd like, if it's cool with you, maybe talk about the guy who doesn't necessarily hunt a ton of public and has private land that they hunt primarily. What would you say to that person? Is that, you know, is a saddle still a primary method that people should use, or, you know, can use, I guess, on private land, as opposed to, you know, even if you, because Matt's sitting over here going, I got my place over there in Fayette that's, you know, I'm growing giants on, and you know what I mean? So is there a...
You know, you don't need a saddle when you're shooting them off your porch. But
I've shot 2 deer off my porch in like 7 years.
That's more than I've shot off of my porch in my lifetime.
Well, you're just envious.
Yeah.
It's fun.
But I mean, I think there's still a place for a saddle even on private land too.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
The nice thing about it is, again, like I said, I was buying 20-foot ladder sticks for $50 a pop, and I can prep a tree on both sides of a food tree for $100, right? And it's already set up and ready to go, and I just bring my saddle in and out. It's way easier for me to prep a property, like private property, like my place right now, for a bunch of saddle locations than it ever would be for a tree stand.
Absolutely.
And again, based on wind and whatever else. And here's the deal. It doesn't matter. If you're in a tree stand, there's a blind spot. There are spots where you cannot get a shot. I don't have that in a saddle. Unless I'm set up where I've got really bad branches or something funky to work on. I can always kind of rotate and turn if I hear something behind me. And there's a blind spot to a fixed tree stand that you can't get around. And I don't have that. And then if like I said, if you had mentioned with the wind, if I get up and I want to hunt this oak tree and I get up there and the wind's kind of doing something different, well, I've got a 20-foot ladder stick on both sides of that tree. I just go to this one instead of that one, and it costs me less to prep 2 trees than it costs for one lock on.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep, absolutely. So I mean, that's kind of that's what I'd say too, is that there's still a place for it, you know, and it kind of depends on how mobile you want to be. And I like having the option. If I need to move, I can move. So
yeah,
you know, I think that will just about wrap it up. Ernie, thanks so much, man. I know it's crazy, and you guys, we didn't mention this either. Ernie had an emergency appendectomy. Just a week ago?
Oh, not even that.
Not even a week ago?
4 or 5 days, something like that.
So he's still got stitches and moving around slow, and he certainly didn't have to jump on this podcast this week. He could have said, hey, man, I'm going to sit this one out. We'll do it some other time. But thanks for hanging out, man. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to the show, too. I think you guys are going to have you do have a big presence here already, and this show is kind of in your backyard. You said, you know, Tethered headquarters is 40 miles away from here. So
you know, we like to say that Tennessee is tethered country, and we're here in big force. We got quite a few people, a big booth, lots of cool products. Yeah. You know, it's a turkey show, right? So we're here showing off our turkey vest and the different things that we got there. And you know, keep in mind that turkey vest isn't necessarily just for turkeys. It's set up so that by mixing and matching pieces, you can turn it into a run and gun whitetail vest really easy.
Yeah, that's true. That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. Guys, thank you for listening. Obviously, we would really appreciate it if you liked us, followed us on social media outlets, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Again, we've got some pretty cool stuff coming down the way. We're doing a couple more shows here with some other guys while we're at NWTF. And we still got a bow we got to give away, and I promise as soon as it shows up, we're gonna promote that pretty hard too. So stay tuned. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.
Adios.
Thanks.